Good day, sisters and brothers, One Nation Tribal Alliance and community. Today, I am here to continue my 10 video challenge, and I believe I'm on my fifth one today. So, I'm going to talk about Zuni, Pueblo, where I was born and raised. So, I will tell you a little bit about it and a little bit of sights around the area. So, before I get started, let me get to my PowerPoint so I stay in track. You know me, because I'll be flying all over the place. But anyway, here we go. Let me see. There it is. And there it is. Okay. Again, Zuni Pueblo and nearby sites. And again, One Nation Tribal Alliance. And you know who I am. And this is our symbol for One Nation Tribal Alliance. So I will go ahead and continue. This is a video, a presentation for Zuni, where I was born and raised. I was born and raised in Zuni. Zuni is located about 45 miles south of Gallup off of I-40. When you get to Gallup, you get off of exit 26, you go south on Highway 53, and you will run into Zuni. Zuni is, again, has a population about 11,000 to 12,000 people, and most of the younger generation are out, you know, off the reservation, working elsewhere. So population just comes and goes depending on what's going on in Zuni. Now, the the place in Zuni, the picture that you're seeing right now is a picture of our church that was built, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Nestora Senora de la Guadalupe is the way it is written. This church was built in the middle village of Zuni. And Zuni, you know, you can see the rock houses all the way around. All the kivas are around this church and everything. And this is in the middle village of Zuni Pueblo. Now, this church, again, the Vigas on it are dated back 1629, where the first original church was built in Hawiku. And when this church got built to be a bigger church, they used the original Vigas on it. And I don't know if they still allow people to tour inside it, but if you usually go inside it and you look at the Vigas, these Vigas were made by the Spanish when they were building the church back in 1629. And the bell that's hanging there was brought from Mexico, which is uh, the bell that is rung through the saint that is located on the south side of this church. The saint is let me see which saint was it. Six saint was it? But anyway, there's a Saint Izuni that came with the bell, and when they built this church, they hung the bell, and that's why this bell is up there that came back in 1629 from, I guess, Mexico when the Spaniards came up here to build the church. Now, Zuni had a free life, and everything used to be according to their stargazer. But since everything started, you know, being organized, and I guess a calendar year was introduced to the tribe, the Zuni you know, started into what I call structuralism and functionalism. And so Zuni people are very in a tight, structured year, and functionalism is we all function according to what comes up, and you function according to your clanship. If you're on your matrilineal side, you help with working over there. If you're on your patrilineal side, you provide the material for whatever they are doing, whether it's cooking or building a house. So, we have two things that we do when structuralism and functionalism come into play. So we do have certain things that you can basically figure out what's going to happen. Like currently, you know, this time of the month and year or season, we are getting ready for a winter solstice and Shalako. So, you know, Zuni people are getting ready for this to where they know their function to this, celebration. So, Zuni is pretty busy right now, but anyway, I wanted to show you this church that was built, and the vigas in this church were brought, they were made by the Spanish back in 1629. That's when Zuni first got their Catholic church built. So, next, I'm going to go into this. And again, like I said about Shalako, things are going to happen. Well, these are what we call mud oven huts. I know they look like beehives, but ovens are part of our daily life as we go into our ceremonial seasons. And what the women do is they cook a lot using these ovens. And ovens are made out of sandstone and red clay, which is gathered beside the mountain, because when they bring it in, this mud is, really, really sticky to where it's used as a mortar to keep the rocks together, and it shapes as a dome in the outside or the outside of the oven. As you can see, these ovens are clearly well maintained to where it is shaped pretty good. Now, ovens are used to bake bread. You Some people can bake as much as 25 loaves at one time. Zuni believes in feeding people. So when the ceremonial happens, they have to feed the guests. So, 25 loaves may not be enough bread to where they may have to make bake bread 2 or 3 times before the ceremonial comes. And also, the ovens can be used for overnight cooking. And my mama used to, roast her turkey in the oven, make some stew in her oven, or just pies. After the bread comes out, the oven will still be hot enough to where my mama used to just make some pies and put them in the oven and, just keep an eye on it. And when they're ready, she'll pull them out. And we had fresh pies in the oven. So ovens are used in so many ways by the ladies, and they usually end up building it themselves. The men will try to help, but they do all the labor work, such as setting up the big heavy rocks and splitting those sandstones to where they use about a 3/4 of an inch sandstone to pile up on each other until and shape it like a beehive dome, as you can see. Now, the background of this picture right here, this mountain here, we call that Dowa Yallane. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about this in the next section. But anyway, reason why I kept this picture too also is that I want you to realize that see these white lines on the mountain and the red lines, and if you look up close, there are white lines within that red part of the rock, and there are also red lines between the part of this white spot. So there is a good story behind that, because if you look at this picture with the sunset, you can clearly see the white lines in the red rock, and you can't hardly see the red lines on the white rock. But this is the mountain. A lot of people call it Sacred Mountain, but it's not really a sacred mountain. That's not the real name of it. If you ask an elder, what's the name of that rock? He's going to tell you, Dowa Yallane. And Dowa Yallane has nothing to do with sacred. Dowa is meaning that it's, um, how would you say? Ancient is not really a word, but it's like it was part with us to where it's a historical mountain. That's the way I would call it. Dowa Yallane is like a historical mountain. And, you know, if you ask the elders about this mountain, Dowa Yallane, they say, okay, there's a lot of oral history behind it. And one of the oral history is that, about the Great Flood. And, the Great Flood is documented everywhere about it in many different cultures and even in the Bible. So, the Great Flood, Zuni's took refuge up there, which I will talk about it in my next slide. But I just want you to show you that Dowa Yallane is, historical mountain, not sacred mountain. But also, Dowa Yallane has a strong spiritual impact on people because one, it was a safe haven for the people during, you know, the first newcomers that came. Zuni was the first native contact that the Spaniards had. It was Fray Marcos de Niza and Estebanico. Estebanico was a Moroccan slave that shipwrecked with Cabeza de Vaca, and they followed the Gulf. And when they got to Mexico, Coronado was in Mexico. So, with Estebanico's experience with contacting other tribes along the Gulf Coast, he said, I want to go up north with a group to discover what is up there. So Coronado sent Estebanico, Fray Marcos de Niza, and two other soldiers with him to come up north. And Zuni was the first tribe they made contact with. And so and there's another story to that too, but I'm not going to go into that today. But anyway, taking refuge. Zuni, when Coronado tried to invade in Zuni land, the Zunis took refuge on top of the mountain up here. And there is a village that is abandoned that is still in existence up on top of the mountain, on top of the mesa. And this next picture, you'll see up close what Zuni mountain really, how steep the rocks are. And there's only three ways you can get up this sacred mountain or this Dowa Yallane. And one is you see this little stem coming up behind there. There's a water hole down below, and the ladies will come walk down, get the water, and put it on their head, and walk up the mountain. And there's actually footholds that was dug out for them to use to climb up those footholds and to get up to the top of the mountain. There's also a back trail that they can that they finally built after the Spanish made peace with the tribe to where horses can, get up on that trail now. After that, I guess about excuse me, in the late 60s, the FAA, Federal Air Administration, decided to put a airline beacon up on top of the Dowa Yallane, and so they put a beacon up there, but it never survived. The beacon is located by right here, and to get up there to that beacon, that you can climb up about 3/4 of the way, and the other quarter last climb is a straight climb, and they put metal ladders into the rock. They drilled holes and put metal ladders into the rock to where those ladders were still there when I was a kid because we'd come up 3/4 of the way and we use the ladders to climb up to the top. As soon as you get up to the top, where there used to be an air beacon, you can still see the metal standing on that rock. But because I guess nature didn't want to have the air beacon there, a lot of the airplanes that try to use that beacon would be directed wrong to where they were not, guiding or they were not guided right, according to what the elders used to say. This air beacon finally was not useful, so the FAA came back and tore it down and they moved it west of the reservation in the Arizona side. So, anyway, those are the only three ways you can climb up this Dowa Yallane. So, Also, in the ancient days, there's a big ruins down here on the bottom of Dowa Yallane. They call that place Kakima. Kakima was a Zuni village to where when they were not when this occupation on top got too crowded, they moved some of the people down on the bottom and they built a village, and there's still a big mound and artifacts still laying around that area to where, you know, people come and visit, but you know, it's still there. I mean, Kakima is still there. So that's one little information about Dowa Yallane. Now, as I said to you about how steep them rocks are, you can see, you know, those back in the day were hard to climb. And during the Spanish invasion, the Zunis will be up there. Of course, at that time, Zunis did not know how to fight. They didn't have any weapons or anything. So when the Spanish tried to conquer them, all they did was they pushed off rocks. They pushed off rocks, and finally, you know, after the Spanish realized that they don't know how or where to climb the mountain, they can't. They did not overtake Zuni, so that was the only way Zuni conquered the Spanish. Now these statues right here to the right, these are about the Great Flood. Again, Zuni has a history of or the Great Flood, like it is written in many different cultures and in the Bible. The Great Flood came, and the Zunis took refuge on top of this mountain. And when the water kept rising and rising and rising, the Zuni rain priest said, I will, you know, bring my daughter and son forward to where they will come and stop the flood waters. So, as they walked through the village that was occupied up top, they were given the sacred cornmeal. And when they were given the sacred cornmeal, they finally came over to the ledge and they sat down over here on this ledge at the base of these statues. When they sat down on the base of the statues, the floodwaters went above their head and stopped. And when they stopped and receded, this is what the outcome was. You know, the outcome of the water that receded from the flood. And as time went on, the people or the elders would start saying that, you know, they started having a family. So the first two that was up there, the rain priest's son and daughter, and now they have a family where it is located right here. So that's the story of our great flood in Zuni in a nutshell. It goes deeper, but I'm just going to give you all a nutshell version. Now, again, with these steep rocks, Zunis took refuge when when the Spaniards came, and when they tried to attack Zuni, coming up to a rock, trying to find a place where they could climb and attack. All Zunis did was pushed off rocks, and when they pushed off rocks, you know, again, I guess they injured some of the Spaniards to where they finally realized they couldn't climb the rock because they didn't know how to climb it, and so they won, they conquered, and Zuni, you know, survived, you know, the Spanish or the enemy invasions in the past while, you know, residing up here on top of the mesa. Also, Zuni was not involved in the Pueblo revolt, even though a lot of the Rio Grande Corridor Pueblos sent out a messenger to Zuni and Hopi saying that there's going to be a revolt, and one is, you know, for us to prepare for it because, you know, they're going to try to go against the Spanish people that were just, you know, I guess pushing their way around the Rio Grande corridor to where the tribes in the Rio Grande decided to revolt. And they sent out messengers, and Zuni got their messengers, so they, you know, they got their Catholic priest and they hit him. And when they hit him because of the Pueblo revolt, because a lot of the Rio Grande corridor, you know, pueblos, they killed their Spanish priests. So Zuni and Hopi did not kill theirs; they just hid them till after the Pueblo revolt. So, you know, I guess that's why our church survived, in Zuni, and we still have that church standing there. Even though they don't have mass in there anymore, it's still standing there. But that's a little bit of information about Dowa Yallane. Now, if you go about 30 miles to 35 miles east on Highway 53, on right outside Zuni Village, you go east, you go to a place called Tsinna. This is Tsinna, meaning if you translate Tsinna in Zuni, it's called Inscription Rock. And again, during this early Spanish, exploring, they came to El Morro, which was occupied by the Zuni people on top. And there's a water hole right here where this canyon is. There's a water hole, and the Spanish found that water hole and will come and water their horses and realize that the Zunis were occupied on top. And knowing that these are steep rocks again, just like Dowa Yallane, they did not try or attempt to climb these rocks because, you know, they weren't aware of the footholds that they could use to climb the rocks because it's sheared off like this most of the way around. And so when they would come, water their horses, Coronado, Pizarro, De Soto, all kinds of Spanish explorers that came through Zuni, they signed their name on this soft sandstone. That's why it's called Atsina, meaning inscription rock. And to date, you can still see those names on the walls of these rocks where they watered their horses. And to the right, they do have their names, inscribed into the rock. So this is El Morro and Atsina, what they call it. And again, you know, now if you come visit El Morro, it's got some amenities. It's got a place where you can have a picnic. It's got a place where you can have camping. So, El Morro is now run by the National Park Service, but the Zunis, was Zuni land at one time. They had to get a 100-year lease with the tribe to maintain this national park. So this is part of Zuni. Now, this is the village that I told you that is on top of El Morro. This was occupied by the Zuni people. So these villages, this village had over 2,000 people occupied at one time. So you can tell it was a big group of people that was occupying these villages. And if you look in the background, these background mountains, they call these Zuni Mountains. Zuni Mountain, Zuni Reservation used to go quite a ways. This is like about 30 to 50 miles off of the Zuni village. But again, you can, on at El Morro, you can go on a 2.5 mile hike, which is paved. And now, if you're not in good shape, I would recommend you take your time because it's a very steep climb, and you can tell how high you are, and that altitude has less oxygen. So, a lot of people, they have a hard time, climbing this little 2 mile hike. But you walk into this village when you do that 2.5 mile hike. So this is El Morro. Now, on your way to El Morro, there's a area called Timber Ridge. This is a Timber Ridge area, and you can see the cliff dwellings. These cliff dwellings, again, was during the Anasazi period, which is believed to be during the time, of the little people. And Zunis were the ones that occupied this cliff dwelling. So it is still part of Zuni because this cliff dwelling is about 25 miles east of the El Morro. And, it's got a lot of ruins and histories that Zunis occupied around that area. And so this is a little bit about where I was born and raised. And I just thought I would share this information with you. And again, I want to thank you for watching, these videos. And if you like it, please like and subscribe. And so, again, our information, you know, we do teach native alchemy class and healing and raising your vibration through the chakra course. That chakra course is taught by my partner Kim. She does a real good job about teaching that, and I do the native alchemy course, and we do it together because it's about the same way how we raise our vibration. And I use the native medicine wheel, and she uses the 7 chakras. But we know there are more chakras than there is 7, but she focuses in on the 7 major chakras. So, and I do the same thing with the native alchemy medicine wheel. Now, we have a website called Healthy and Harmonious Lifestyle.com. And if you look at it, this is what our healthy and harmonious lifestyle symbol looks. And here's a link that you can get more information about us. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at hello at healthyandharmoniouslifestyle.com. And, you know, to join the One Nation Tribal Alliance group, Facebook group, just go on One Nation Tribal Alliance Facebook and join, and welcome to the community. If you join, I love y'all. And I just want to say, I really enjoy doing these kind of things. So I will continue. I got 5 more to go, and I'm running out of days. So I'll be doing one every other day because November's coming out. Click. I love you. Okay. So